So today on Pulp Tales, we're taking a very colorful and picturesque look at probably one of the most important Gold Key comic publications of the 1960s and 1970s. For a lot of people, Gold Key was their #2 comic book brand of choice behind Marvel, and boys oh boys did the Gold Key fans get some great comic books out of this. Now, the original Star Trek series, which began in the mid-1960s, they were doing various offshoots, including TV plays and books and stuff. But Gold Key, which was part of the Whitman Publishing Group, which was a child-orientated company, ran 61 issues of Star Trek the comic book between July 1967 and March 1979. And there was supposed to be 62 issues, but 62nd issue, Trial by Fire, was not published because of cancellation. Now, in 2019, you can get the Gold Key collection of the Star Trek compilations for a very good price, remastered, including 5 different high-quality volumes. Now, for a Star Trek fan who knows about Gold Key, it's easy to explain, but for those who don't know, Star Trek obviously was a great science fiction hit for NBC in color in the mid-1960s, got a lot of recognition for William Shatner and as Kirk, and Spock, Leonard Nimoy as Spock. But the comic book version had some canon to it, but there were stories and setups a little bit different than the TV show, because in the comic books you could expand a little bit. Now, the major characters were the same, of course. Kirk and Spock appeared in all of the stories, while Dr. Leonard McCoy, or Bones, appeared in 49. Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott also appeared in 49, but not the initial great #1 picture cover issue. For some reason, the artist who was doing James Doohan didn't know what he looked like, and he was drawn differently, but he had his normal vision by issue 12. Again, Lieutenant Takata Sulu appeared in 35 stories. Lieutenant Nyota Uhura appeared in 34. Ensign Chekhov appeared in 2 stories. Nurse Chapel was featured in 3 and appeared in 5 others. And Yeoman Janice Rand appeared twice in #1 and a 1-panel cameo in 24. Now, what was interesting here is that there was a whole bunch of writers and creators around the issue. For example, the writing group, including the great Lynn Wein, George Kasdan, Jerry Boudreau, Arnold Drake, Doug Drexler, John David Warner, Alan Monis, and Dick Wood. And the lead artist, of course, was the great Italian creator Alberto Giotti, who had a great way with the Gold Key style, it was called. Alan McWilliams did 22 issues, and Nobuhiro Sakata did 2. So it wasn't really the DC or Marvel standbys, no Kirby, no Neil Adams, even though Neil Adams did some of the Peter Pan records and stuff like that. But what was very interesting here, some issues were standalone, some issues were kind of sequels. For example, the iMud sequel, City Edge of Forever, Who Mourns for Adonias Metamorphosis, because with Zefram Cochrane, very big character in the regular series, TV series, and the Evictors. Now, the only problem with the distribution with Gold Key or Whitman comic books is not everybody got every issue. Sometimes these were every 2 or 3 months. The comics were, there was no numbers on the front like the Gold Key standard. But what really stood out for a lot of the Star Trek collectors and fans, there was promo photos on the front covers of the Gold Key comics that didn't show up in any TV print ads or different celebrations of the series, especially Spock. There's some photos on there that must have been promo dating back to the Cage, because the makeup is a little bit different, the year is a little bit different. And if you look at the covers, though, it's very psychedelic for the 60s and 70s. There's a basic what they call quarterly layout that Gold Key was known about. But at the time, Gold Key had a lot of horror imprints, including Ripley's Believe It or Not, the Boris Karloff series, the Twilight Zone series. I'm not saying this was as popular as their horror titles, but at the time, Star Trek having a version of Gold Key for years after the series was cancelled and before Star Trek Next Generation, including the animated series, was very important. But like I said, there's no comic book can capture the live action of Star Trek because of camaraderie and the way that DeForest Kelley, Leonard Nimoy, Shatner, James Doohan, the rest of the cast used to, have shorthand comedic moments and stuff like that. But but from a collector standpoint, in high quality or mint condition, are very expensive because of the picture covers, because of the high demand. I think number one, I've seen that as high, a PSA 9.5 in the $10,000, $20,000 range. I've seen that quite often. So if you have a chance, those key reprints, no pun intended, of the 2000s are good to invest in. It's not past a grade 8 comprehension or reading level like most Gold Key comics, because Gold Key had kind of the younger element at heart, because Whitman was like that. But it's so weird with Whitman. They would produce the Star Trek comic books, would have the puzzles and different promotions. It was very interesting, but they only lost the imprint, of course, when Marvel took over and they did the Star Trek Next Generation adaptation and the follow-ups. But for the time, for what they were very important in the history of Star Trek. I know a lot of people in my family still has them. The one issue I bought years ago was a very weird plot about, a Ute king that was standing up against the people that won to usurp his throne. But again, like I said, Gold Key was always about quality. And let me tell you, they brought the quality in this comic book. But Len Wein, again, he was the key guy in this, a well-respected creator and presenter. And like I said, a little shout out, by the way, Strange Adventures in Frankton, our comic book gurus down there. If anybody's listening to this podcast, please patron, because they support a lot of the old reprints from the 60s and 70s, including the Disney, the Dell, the Gold Key, the DC, the Marvel, some of the other independent prints. They could probably track down this for you. And if you go on Amazon or eBay, you could probably get the Gold Key compilation. Do not invest in the original comic books. It's like Dark Shadows. They're very expensive. Get the compilations. But even Dark Shadows is very expensive in compilation because of the limited runs. So in this kind of half snowy morning, where northern New Brunswick is under a snow advisory, in the south we're having snow and freezing rain, we tell you to live long and prosper. And if, like I said, if anybody has some Gold Key Star Trek you want it taken off their hands, Canterbury Home Office, you know where to find it. Have a good day. Bye.